right off the bat, I need to make this clear as crystal
Jesse!
that this isn't an us versus them issue. Nothing I say in this video takes away from any other group's oppression, and I most certainly don't want any of you to turn this into Oppression Olympics, cause it benefits no one.
Oh my god, what is that?
Huh?
Oh my god! What is that?
Neither is any of this calling out trans women specifically. When I say some people treat trans men this way, your brain shouldn't autocorrect some people into trans women. Okay, this needs to be said because these discussions are often turned into a trans women versus trans men issue, where the big mean trans women are bullying us small innocent little trans men, which really isn't the case, because I've seen all sides of the spectrum perpetuate this, especially cis women.
You need to leave!
Like, stay in your own goddamn lane, thank you. Simply not being a cishet white man doesn't exempt your transphobia, and that goes for everyone. Criticism is welcome, but criticizing or calling out certain behavior never gives you a free pass to insult someone's immutable characteristics or deny their identity just because they're a bit of a shithead. This seems to be a huge issue in online circles, but the specific tweet that prompted me to make this video goes as follows. Trans men being misogynistic is so nuts to me. Bro, don't forget your factory settings. None of this is a personal attack on this Twitter user, as this is just a one-off tweet and doesn't necessarily reflect their set of beliefs. I'm only using it as a point of reference before delving in completely.
I've fallen.
To be quite honest, their tweet is rather tame in comparison to a lot of other posts I've seen being made about trans men. Like, to me, it's something so sad about seeing the people that claim to be your allies going out of their way to further prejudice under the guise of combating misogyny, specifically trans misogyny, which is a very real thing. Now, excuse me if I'm jumping to conclusions here, but it often comes off as just a classic case of transphobia with a thin coat of progressive language to evade criticism.
That's my opinion!
Cut the cameras.
Although I'm willing to bet a lot of these people tweeting stuff like that are trans themselves, we should know by now that trans people can also perpetuate transphobia. It's really not rocket science, okay? Internet being the way it is, there's always gonna be at least one person typing away in the comments in response to the least charitable interpretation of what I just said. If that's you, go on, leave your comments. Feed the algorithm. You know what they say? Haters make me famous.
Period, period.
Just remember to subscribe and turn on all notifications while you're down there. Thanks! That being said, none of this is meant to downplay the seriousness of trans misogyny or even compare. That's why I'd like to start off by acknowledging what trans misogyny is and how it differs from casual transphobia. The word was coined in mid-2000s by Julia Serrano, author, activist, and trans woman, in her book Whipping Girl. As the word transmisogyny suggests, it's the intersection of misogyny and transphobia, which manifests in unique ways opposed to regular transphobia. Before we can really get into all of that, we gotta have the talk. So, bestie, I don't know if you knew this, but we live in a society. Yeah, it's true. Take a few seconds to process that.
I'm the Joker, baby!
Not only that, but society at large doesn't really think highly of women, their interests, and anything deemed feminine. This instantly becomes apparent when you look at how people view anything catering to women or is known for having a female-dominated audience. Think Justin Bieber, One Direction, K-pop, DSMP, and Twilight. All of which there's very valid criticism to be given.
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
But a majority of the time, people simply hated it because it's gay. The aversion to anything that might align with femininity has contributed to the phenomenon of girls who are not like other girls, also known as pick-me girls. By participating in the mocking of other girls and their interests, they're distancing themselves from femininity and the misogyny that comes with it. Does it work?
No, I don't think so.
Only to a certain extent. Although the boys, trademarked, might like you better than the girly girls, at the end of the day, you're still gonna have to pay for the crime of having been born a girl. In a weird way, this is exactly what has kept me, a non-passing trans man, safe in public for the most part throughout my life. Not because people don't hate us trans men, but rather because men's fashion is neutral. They don't have the same visceral reaction when someone perceived to be a woman with really short hair is wearing jeans and a t-shirt, simply because we're just blending in. Though it's not completely without consequences, there's a fine line between being a tomboy and just straight up transitioning, and it should not be crossed. When women's only value lies in their attractiveness, there's a price to be paid when you're no longer deemed fuckable. On the flip side, we've got gender non-conforming men, trans femmes, and women. Doesn't really matter what you identify as, like heck, you could even be an AFAB detransitioner as long as you could be perceived as a man in a dress. Contrary to people like me, they're not given the benefit of the doubt. This hypocrisy stems from the belief that masculinity is the default. Most of the time, it's completely neutral, and the foremost purpose of men's fashion is convenience rather than looking good. Personally, I've always been a huge fan of men's clothing, such as graphic tees and plain jeans, so I'm not really complaining, but I know I'm far from the only man, and there's probably men out there that want to wear pink frills, skirts and pants so tight you might as well paint them on. I see you, I hear you, but consider this. It's just not practical. That's right, fellas. Not only do cargo shorts make you irresistible to any woman with half a brain cell, but they also carry your phone, keys, and wallet. Unlike your girlfriend's fake ass pockets, yeah, I've seen their jeans. Those pockets aren't even real.
Oh my god, what is that?
Laugh all you want, but any decent cargo shorts could hold
Wealth beyond your wildest dreams.
Cause at the end of the day, you're a man. You don't need to look good, you need inventory and comfort. Doing anything solely for aesthetic reasons is gay.
And you did it at my birthday dinner.
Skincare routine, gay. Washing your ass, gay. Makeup, that's also gay. Any decent man use war paint because concealer is for females.
It didn't make any human sense. I can't explain it to you in a way that makes sense.
Anything that would suggest you actually put effort into looking good is gay as hell. Who are you trying to look good for? Other men? Are you trying to attract other men, you homo? Obviously, that's the only reason anyone would want to look good, not to feel better about themselves or anything. Obviously, that's why women dress up at least. Or so I've heard.
How can I be gay when I like the JJ? How can I be gay?
See, this is exactly why you often hear the Andrew Tate type of crowd preach that women are born with value while men have to earn theirs. Because according to their ideology, women don't need personalities, interests, nor skills. Being pretty is a full-time job and the uniform is pretty uncomfortable.
Triggered.
Miniskirts are cute, but you're gonna have to be careful bending over and sitting down lest you'd flash your kitty. Gay, lesbian or straight, everyone loves a good pair of breasts. Can't afford a boob job? Just get a push-up bra. What's that? The underwire is stabbing your armpit? That sucks, but you know what they say, beauty is pain, so you better wax those legs, you human ape. Although body hair is completely natural, you're deemed unhygienic and a crazy feminist if you're not smoother than a dolphin. Makeup is required, even when you're not wearing makeup, allegedly. Because men will preach that they prefer their women all natural, but the women they're referring to is wearing concealer, brow gel, mascara and lip gloss on the minimum. Now, if you decide to wear pants, they better be skin tight to show off your curves and your childbearing hips. There's no room for pockets. If you need somewhere to put your phone, just get a purse.
Lovely lady.
Open your purse. I see it right there. Give it. Give me your dollar.
Obviously, I'm exaggerating a bit. The average woman doesn't have the time nor money to keep up with all these beauty standards. It's more so the idealized woman. A sexually appealing woman. Think Barbie. Yeah, Barbie. Peak femininity is something you have to pursue. It's not something any man, or rather, those perceived as men, would bother themselves with, unless they want to. What then? What then, society? Tell me that!
I'm the Joker, baby!
In a society where womanhood is performed supposedly for the attention of men, what does that imply about gender non-conforming men, trans women, and femmes? Could they possibly simply be expressing themselves in a way that is true to them? Aha, nonsense! There must be an ulterior motive. When you already have a rigid understanding of gender and see women as lesser than, it's more likely that you're not gonna be all that accepting of someone transitioning, whether they're a man, woman, or anything in between. I know from first-hand experience that these people don't take me seriously. To them, I'm a cat. I think I own the house, and my owner is just living in it. I was born a woman, and I've willingly given up the only value I have in society, that being my natural feminine beauty, to pursue manhood. It's laughable. And although they often won't get too confrontational, they'll make sure to force girl into every sentence just to make sure there's absolutely no doubt about it. I am, and will for always be, a girl in their eyes. Trans women and femmes, on the other hand, get the short end of the stick. Despite coming from the very same place as any other trans person, they're seen as inherently dangerous based on their assigned gender at birth. When you then use gender stereotypes to figure out the motivations of trans women and their desire to present more femininely, you reach a very harmful conclusion. They're men getting sexual gratification from dressing up as women. They're men tricking other men into having sex with them. Then we have the classic. They're men pretending to be women so they can prey on women and kids in the public restrooms. First of all, anyone who says this is really just telling on themselves, cause most normal people only go in there to piss and wash their hands. Like, you're not gonna see anything worth the effort of transitioning. I don't mean to put any ideas into your head, but there's at least 100 better ways to perv on girls that require none of that. Just saying.
Electric chair.
It's all messed up, dangerous, and a very real phenomenon. And you know, I'm not a trans woman. I don't understand everything they go through. I'm only really repeating what I've learned through reading theory and my own observation. If you're a trans woman, femme, or gender non-conforming man, or whatever the fuck you might be, you're more than welcome to leave a comment with your own experience, opinion, correct me, or just straight up challenge my point of view. I'm not an authority on anything, I don't claim to be, and we're all just living and learning, right? That being said, the reason I'm even talking about all of this to begin with is so I can start a conversation about the flip side of this. Cause I don't see nearly enough people talking about it, and when it is being talked about, I find it's often shut down or derailed for a multitude of reasons. And look, I'm not gonna pretend like all of this trans men, masks, and non-binaries are all innocent and can do no wrong. I've seen plenty of them just be shitheads when they go about it, turning it into oppression Olympics, etc. And it really doesn't have to be like that. Why can't we all just talk about our struggles while validating and uplifting each other? Because at the end of the day, it's just two sides of the same coin. And that's what I find so interesting about this. The same gender stereotypes that lead people to the conclusion that trans women are perverts and predators do affect us too, just in a very different way. Transphobia targeting trans men is more dubious, and although I'm glad people aren't calling me a predator at the top of their lungs, it's still aggravating because it makes it so much more difficult to talk about and actually have people listen and take you seriously without going, "I hate all men, that includes trans men, teehee, I'm such a trans ally." Like, go f*** yourself, like genuinely, go f*** yourself. I'm so tired of transphobia being masked as progressiveness, especially when it's not coming from someone within the community. Cause it's not cute, and it's not funny. If you want to make the blanket statement, men suck, then go ahead. I say that all the time. Cause they do suck for the most part. All that I'm asking is that you don't bring any marginalized men into the conversation, whether it's except for XYZ or including XYZ, because it's just so wrong, annoying, and lacking in nuance, whichever way you cut it. I don't even know where to begin. My feelings on this topic can best be summarized by the following tweets. Screenshot of tweet saying, "You cannot say all men are bad and not expect your trans mask friends to internalize that bit by bit," with the caption, "This person was harassed into deleting his tweet, and not gonna lie, I'm fucking pissed over it." Now, sorry about the tweetception here, but what really resonated with me was the following quote retweet. "The worst part about being a trans mask is understanding where people come from when they say this, but also still wanting the language to be changed, because the generalization of men has contributed to our erasure. But not knowing how to say that without sounding like not all men. If you ask me, this hit the nail on the head. Not to sound like a whiny man, but we've got real issues too. Similarly to trans women being viewed as men, therefore inherently predatory, we're seen as delusional women. I'm sure you've seen both TERFs and right-wingers like paint us as victims, and I can only assume this has contributed to the idea that we're constantly being coddled by transphobes. I totally understand why you'd think that, but I've found that even those that supposedly wants to protect us from the big scary transgender are surprisingly hostile towards us. They mock our appearance, our voices, and call us zipper tits. Never have I ever gotten the feeling that any raging transphobe's heart was in the right place. Never once have I gotten the feeling that they genuinely cared about my well-being, and that's because they don't. They don't want to save any of us from transgenderism. We're just lost causes that, in their words, deserved it. Yes, I've been told that, or at best, someone they can use to further their agenda. They point to detransitioners and say, "Look at this ugly freak woman! Her body is completely mutilated and she's never gonna live a fulfilling life. She might as well just kill
Have a lovely day
herself. Please save another child from becoming an ugly hag."
I take a shower.
Similarly to trans women, we're groomers. Not victims, they're just less upfront about it. They'll use anything to discredit our transness, our trauma, our time in the closet, and our disorders, even when it's clearly a result of gender dysphoria, such as eating disorders, depression, and anxiety, all of which are common amongst trans people. The very same gender essentialism that is used to justify their transphobia towards trans women is also used against us. And I believe you'd find that it's not too dissimilar.
No, I don't think so.
At one point or another, you've probably heard someone go, "Boys will be boys." At first glance, it's a fairly innocuous statement. Boys will be boys. They're gonna get dirty playing in the mud. Boys will be boys. They're gonna use sticks for sword fights in the backyard. Boys will be boys. They're gonna pull their classmates' pigtails and chase her down during recess. You know, boys will be boys. Four simple words that excuse their violent tendencies, allowing them to grow into violent men. This is so ingrained in us that it's become second nature. There's no can do. Men are just wired that way, we say. Boys will be boys. Not only that, but we blame it on testosterone, rather than taking a look at how they're raised. Testosterone is what turns them into savage beasts, implicating anyone who's either gone through or is going to go through this hormone wash, when most of us have been victims to the patriarchy ourselves for the better part of our lives. Although masculinity is endorsed and rewarded, any proximity to maleness by anyone who isn't a cis man is prohibited, because it goes against this false dichotomy society is fighting tooth and nail to uphold.
So do I think I'm transgender? Yes, 1000%. Do I identify with my natural born gender? 1000%.
As trans men, we've gone all of our lives feeling like something ain't right, and the people around us can sense it. When we finally come out on the other side, we find that we can't even seek sanction amongst those that are supposed to be our allies. It's not that uncommon to find well-meaning feminists and LGBTQ+ people openly bashing excess body hair, sweat, deeper voices, masculine builds, hair loss, and even going as far as comparing testosterone to poison. Now, listen, I understand that women have been heavily scrutinized throughout history, especially for their appearance, but this ain't it. You can't Uno reverse your way out of this one. You're not hurting the people you think you're hurting. If anything, you're hurting yourselves, because there's even cis women with these traits naturally, and the notion that it's not normal is reinforcing the patriarchy.
I'm triggered.
As a kid, my guy friends would often make fun of my peach fuzz sideburns. Jokes on them though, because I later came out as trans, and once I get on tea, I will grow a gorgeous pair of mutton chops. That being said, shame on you. Shame on you. If you're reinforcing that testosterone is bad and makes you disgusting, shame on you. Shame on you, because I have some liberal ass people saying the most out of pocket shit, thinking they're cute and funny, reinforcing that I'll be destroying my own body with a hormone that would help me finally feel at home in my body. Isn't very trans ally of you. Women are so awesome and beautiful. Why would you ever want to be a man? They suck. Like, man, I really don't know, maybe because it's the only way I could live without wanting to off myself whenever I look in the mirror.
Oh, okay.
I've tried to girl boss and feminism my way out of dysphoria, it didn't work. All I learned is that this feeling goes so much deeper than any internalized misogyny. If anything, all it's doing is reinforcing the misogynistic belief that my value is determined by my looks. So to finally transition was the most liberating choice I have ever made, because I finally chose what would make me happy and fulfilled, rather than what society approved of.
That's my opinion!
I really don't know what term to use while referring to the hate directed at trans men and masks. Although I've seen quite a few people refer to it as transmisandry, I found that people deem it quite controversial, for good reasons, mind you, as it has historically been used in attempts to totally own the crazy man-hating feminists using the know you strategy.
I'm triggered.
Some alternative, less loaded terms I've seen used are transandrophobia and anti-trans masculinity, if you find transmisandry off-putting. I've even seen people discuss how it's simply the result of misogyny, which I think is pretty obvious. Like, surprise, surprise, the prejudice against a group of people in an imaginary dichotomy is always gonna backfire. Who would have thought? Definitely not all the men that have internalized that showing emotion is for women and it makes you weak. And most certainly not all the TERFs that call us zipper tits and more derogatory language to talk about genitals. At the end of the day, I don't give a flying shit what exactly you call the discrimination specific to trans men and masks, as long as it's talked about. For the love of God, will anyone think about the trans men? The trans men! Poor little trans men.
Boo-hoo! Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
What makes this all the more frustrating is the invisibility of men's issues. Like, the actual issues. No, we're not talking about their entitlement to sex, because half of y'all don't deserve it. I'm talking about the stuff they're too embarrassed to talk about. Did you know that about 8% of men in their 20s suffer from erectile dysfunction? Excuse me, it seems like we're having technical issues. I'm now being told to stay on the topic of trans men, specifically the erasure of trans men and our issues, under the assumption that we've got male privilege. I've lived as a man for almost 4 years now, and I haven't seen a sliver of male privilege. Do we really have to go over this again? I'm a pretty, 5'5", baby-faced trans guy. People are much more likely to assume I'm just a lesbian and subject me to toxic levels of misogyny.
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay.
That being said, I can't help but feel people overlook a lot of the nuance while discussing cis-passing trans men. Because it's always under the assumption that people don't know that they're trans. You can look like any other cis man, but if people know you're trans, your male privilege isn't going to save your ass. Passing and being stealth are two very different things. Unfortunately, many find it difficult to go stealth, especially those of us that were only able to transition later in life. That is, unless you're willing to completely uproot your entire life and start all over somewhere else, which isn't exactly a viable option for a lot of us. But even then, you're living under the looming fear of being outed at any moment. Yet, here we are, discussing the male privilege of trans men. Sure.
These are bullies. These are high school f***ing bullies. And they want to come at me and say, you're 29 years old, how you're acting? You. You're in your f***ing 30s.
I am aware that Twitter isn't exactly known for its users' excellent reading comprehension. A wise man once said, you can say I like pancakes and somebody will say, so you hate waffles? No bitch. That's a whole new sentence. What the f*** is you talking about? And that's pretty much why I've completely given up on having any meaningful conversation on that website, seeing as we're only ever talking in circles. We collectively have the memory of a goldfish, and we'll fight the same meaningless fight within a couple of months from now. At this point, I'm mostly there for the memes and talk nowadays. I like to argue for fun. I get a kick out of cursing out strangers. That being said, it still irks me when I come across the most mind-numbingly stupid take regarding trans people, and most of the time I'm able to look the other way, knowing that those tweets won't reach beyond their chronically online echo chamber. But not this time. Oh, heaven forbid, not this time. The trans discourse got to me, chief. Not gonna lie. The person at the center of this whole thing is none other than everyone's favorite trans streamers, Keffels! Whoops, wrong sound effect, let me just... And that's close enough.
I'm the Joker, baby!
It all began with a very controversial tweet by user Karl Max. Quote, every time someone unironically uses the term Theyfab, an anvil should spawn 30 meters above their head. Honestly, I can't believe anyone would ever say such a thing on a highly professional website owned by the upstanding US citizen elongated mucus. I'll have you know that we take threats of violence very seriously. You might as well just post pictures of a firearm and state your intentions to harm people. Pretty much the same thing if you ask me. I mean, for all we know, Karl Max could be hanging up anvils to fall on the next chronically online trans person to use Theyfab as we speak. Wake up, America! We cannot live through another tragedy like this.
Kill everyone now!
And I mean, it's not like this famous visual gag in old cartoons where a character is hit by an anvil and gets compressed like an accordion for comedic relief. No, the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of someone being hit by an anvil is a very violent and bloody death. Gore splattering everywhere like a human packet of ketchup.
Why were you saying that people who say Theyfab should be killed with anvils?
I said that an anvil should spawn 30 feet above their head. That doesn't mean they should be killed.
Oh, come on. We know what you mean by this. I mean, the fact that it's a term that comes from the trans community, and that you say that if someone uses this term, you want them to die, that's fucked up. I still think
What do you mean?
Really
there are
weird.
so many fucking awful terms that's born from the trans community which are terrible to say. Why would you then be like, oh, that's holy, it came from fucking 4chan? Like, really? That's not a an approach, I don't think.
To be fair, I haven't actually watched much of 𝒂𝒊𝒃𝒆 before, so I can't comment on her character as a whole, though I will say that the debate she had with Karl Marx didn't exactly do her any favors. All she managed was making herself look incredibly dumb and kind of manipulative.
That's my opinion!
Where do I even begin? There's a lot to unpack here, but let's start with the word Theyfab. Some absolute genius basically took they-them pronouns and merged it with the term 𝒂𝒊𝒃 to basically mock certain non-binary people, implying that they're faking it. Basically resurrecting this non-binary stereotype from 2015. As most of you know by now, 𝒂𝒊𝒃 is an abbreviation of assigned female at birth and was originally intended to be used in discussions where your assigned gender at birth is relevant. There's very few instances where your birth sex should matter, in my humble opinion, and the majority of the time I've seen 𝒂𝒊𝒃 brought up, it's not one of those moments. More often than not, I have found myself completely bewildered by the usage of these otherwise useful terms. People are practically using it to misgender trans people, but with extra steps, and it's absolutely infuriating that people who present themselves as progressive have just been letting it slide. Most of us transition because we don't want to be seen as our assigned gender. We're all living proof that gender is a social construct, and instead of dismantling the gender binary, some of y'all decided to create even more boxes. This issue is prevalent enough that I've found that it's not uncommon for people to use 𝒂𝒊𝒃 interchangeably with female. Does anyone here remember the 72 gender meme? Yeah, I prefer that over boy non-binary and girl non-binary, whereas AMABs are predatory men shoehorning their way into the LGBTQ community, and 𝒂𝒊𝒃s are just women with funny hair colors and soft boys. You literally turned non-binary into a binary. Shame on you. I bestow 1,000 years of brain rot on you.
Give me $200.
This is something 𝒂𝒊𝒃𝒆 is seemingly all too aware of.
Like, the only times I've seen people use the term 𝒂𝒊𝒃 is when it was non-binary people who were assigned female at birth who were doing 𝒂𝒊𝒃 only housing. Or the non-binary person who was assigned female at birth who was saying that my dog hates AMABs, which both of these things are blatantly transphobic.
Unfortunately, what she described here is a very real thing, and yes, it is transphobic. It's messed up, and it should be criticized. Hell, it should even be mocked. I'm not gonna argue if you were to call any of them dumber than a box of rocks, because that's just the truth if you invoke bio-essentialism to discriminate against certain trans people. That goes both ways, for that matter, which 𝒂𝒊𝒃𝒆 seem to struggle to get through that thick skull of hers. She's literally reinforcing the very same belief she's trying to criticize. On one hand, she does understand why it's a horrible and discriminatory term, and on the other hand, she thinks it's justified depending on the context.
That's why I asked at the start of this. I was like, what was the context it was being used? Because, like, removing it from the context in which people are mad, I totally understand why it's a shitty term. But I feel like if you're talking about it in the context that I've seen it, it just feels like tone policing a marginalized group expressing frustration at a common behavior that they see in other people.
Karl Marx has already explained this to her countless of times, and at this point, I don't expect rephrasing it to do anything, but the few of you that occasionally use that chewed up piece of gum in the nodule you call head would understand that there's absolutely no contexts where a word is justified when the word in and of itself is discriminatory. It might not have an extensive history the same way the N-word has. No one said that, but it's literally an abbreviation of they, them, female, like, come on, why are we even arguing this?
Like, for some people, I could see this, but that's making the assumption that you're talking about someone who experiences dysphoria in the first place, and when that argument, like, when that term is being used, it's usually being used to refer to non-binary people who aren't trans. They're not going through a medical transition, they don't feel dysphoria.
Not only have I seen the word be used against people that are literally transitioning, but how could you possibly know that someone isn't dysphoric and or intends to transition? Tell me, 𝒂𝒊𝒃𝒆. How do you spot non-dysphoric people without relying on stereotypes? I've seen and know plenty of feminine trans masks who go on to transition, cause as we've found, their trans experience is diverse and complex. And I know you know this. There's so many ways to be trans, dysphoric or not. Some trans people experienced little to no dysphoria prior to transitioning. Many of them cite gender euphoria as their reasoning. Are they not living the trans experience?
No, I don't think so.
And that's not even to mention the dysphoric trans people that can't or choose not to transition for one reason or another, non-binary as well as binary trans people, all of whom can be called and are called Theyfabs. As people who use this word don't take a second to assess whether you actually fall under their definition of a Theyfab. There's 1,000 reasons why gender dysphoria is a flawed measurement when gauging true transness. Because there is no measurement.
Yes, 1,000%.
By now, a lot of you have probably caught on and gone, this sounds a lot like transmedicalism. But don't worry, it's not.
But why would you describe them as that? Why not just use a different term which isn't like so inflammatory and also like so drenched in like transmed bullshit as well? Like, do you want to be like associated with that crowd?
No, I feel like it's weird to even say that I'm associated with that crowd when I made it pretty clear that I hate that crowd.
Yeah, but who else uses that term? Like, actually. Like, I do not see... I've
seen a lot of trans women use that term specifically to talk about their experiences of transphobia from people who are non-binary.
I don't see why they would have to use that term, or why you'd then be like, okay, well, that's alright.
Honestly, I'm on her side. I get called gay all the time, even though I've made it very clear I'm homophobic. I just suck because I love my bros. It's different. I love my bros the way I would love a girlfriend. Platonically, of course. What were we talking about again?
The context, because
Doesn't that fall into
the context
transmed
that I
mythology
saw
really
being
well?
used was non-binary people who were assigned female at birth who were talking about how they were doing AFAB only housing. And I'm not going to tone police a trans woman for using Theyfab as an insult in that way.
I disagree with you.
Why would you disagree with me? That someone
Because
obviously...
that's furthering the divide.
Because if they actually
like
believe in stuff like that, they aren't trans. Fuck that.
And
I would not say that a person... Why
not? Why can't they just be trans and stupid? Why are you?
You're not
you can't
listening.
invalidate someone's transness on the basis of them being stupid. If they want,
You're not
if they want
listening to
AFAB
me.
only,
If they're
how
doing
are they not
AFAB only
trans?
housing, how are they trans? That's
how would they? What do you mean?
because I think that anyone who is trans would know that's incredibly transphobic.
Do you know how many stupid trans people there are?
She is straight up admitting that she doesn't think those she would label Theyfabs are really trans because they're discriminating against AMABs. Okay, got it. I'm just wondering if the same goes for people like Blair White. Like, she spent her entire career bullying and targeting other trans people online. AFABs as AMABs alike. Does that mean she's not really trans? Or is it just trans people with a different experience than you? I'm just asking questions. Feel free to answer down below.
I don't think so.
You know what? I'll be kind enough to jog your memory in case you've forgotten the definition of transmedicalism. As the name implies, it's the medicalization of transness. Their core belief is that gender dysphoria is required to be a legitimate trans person. When framing transness as a condition the same way depression is, many find it easier to argue in support of trans healthcare. While antidepressants are sometimes prescribed to treat someone depressed, research has found that the most effective treatment of gender dysphoria is transitioning. Although this is factually correct, viewing transness as a medical issue isn't just reinforcing that there's something wrong with us that needs to be cured, but it's doing a disservice to other gender diverse people that might not fall into the Western understanding of gender. I don't know, maybe the reason we should allow medical transition is because we all deserve bodily autonomy rather than fixing what's wrong. Now, I'll spare you a tangent about how it's rooted in colonialism and racism. Instead, I'll get straight to the point. Almost. Being completely honest with you, I can actually see the appeal of transmedicalism in a world where you're constantly questioned. It feels nice to have an explanation that fits perfectly into the established narrative without challenging it. Saying that you've got a boy brain in a girl body is convenient and digestible, but it's not supported by science exactly. Although 𝒂𝒊𝒃𝒆 claims to not be a transmedicalist, it's clear to me that she holds on to some of those sentiments, subconsciously if not intentional. If you only respect and acknowledge someone's gender identity under the condition that they're not total idiots, that's not true acceptance in my opinion. When a cis man is being misogynistic, for example, you don't suddenly go, that's it, you're a woman now. And I'd even venture to say that 𝒂𝒊𝒃𝒆 usually wouldn't do that to a trans person either, as long as they're the right kind of trans person. Now, I'm not here to defend anyone saying that their dog hates AMAB people, or those doing AFAB only housing. I personally think they're acting like turds. But I'm saying all of this because it's harming all non-binary and gender non-conforming trans people, not just the ones you decide to misgender. You're basically telling them, I'll go along with it to be polite. Is that really a standard you want to set? That someone's transness can be disputed because they hold shitty opinions? Like, really? I don't know, I'm just gonna leave it at that, even though I've got 3 pages of notes from her conversation with Karl Marx. As much as I would love to go over all of her brain thoughts, I'd rather not drag out this longer than necessary. They're basically just talking in circles as she gets more unhinged the more time passes, and she's refusing to back down despite it being obvious that she's in the wrong. It's kinda entertaining, not gonna lie. As I said before, I don't keep up with 𝒂𝒊𝒃𝒆, and I'm not sure whether all of her debates are like this. Hopefully not, but you know what they say, not my circus, not my monkeys. All I hope is that she reflects on her position after this show of a call. Maybe she will, maybe she won't. That's a conversation for another video. These are tough times for trans people in general. A lot of us are doing whatever we can to just get a foothold, and unfortunately, that turns some people reactionary. If you ask me, it's a privilege to be able to sit back and judge the validity of random people you barely know, cause they're not the ones gatekeeping the medical care we're desperate for. But that's just me. Maybe I'm totally missing out on the opportunity to further divide the community. I don't know. Please share in the comments. Despite the sarcasm, I am very much open to criticism. I'm just one trans person and I cannot speak for all of us. That's why I encourage all of you to share your own perspective. Don't be shy to disagree with me, I won't bite. I think discussion is very important. And one last time for the ones in the back. This isn't a trans men versus trans women. Our issues shouldn't be compared. I really hope it didn't come off that way. If it did, shit. That being said, thank you for watching this video. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications. As per usual, you'll find my social media in the comments below, alongside my friend, little Bean-Bunke, who just started up their YouTube channel. They will be posting about Littlest Pet Shop and more. So if that's something you're interested in, I suggest you subscribe to them. I might even appear in some of their future videos. If you're interested in a cool new profile picture, you'll find my commission sheet in my pinned tweet. Just shoot me a DM. Comments are very appreciated and helpful, so if you don't know what to comment, just let me know if you ever played with pet shops growing up and which pet shop you identify with the most. Personally, I'm obsessed with the stone chihuahua. It's fitting because he's the #1, just like me. Anyways, check out this TikTok I found. Bye.
It's been a year, Daddy. I really miss you. Mommy says you went to the store to get milk. Anyways, I'm failing all my classes, and Mommy hit